When we speak to ourselves, we literally paint a picture of who we will become. When you tell a child they're not confident, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They'll start to do things and behave in a certain way which prevents them from becoming confident. If you believe that is true with confidence, then it's true with everything else. We inspire through language, and words are so important, and we're constantly coaching ourselves. But when it comes to identity, ultimately, the way I would see it is this. Welcome back to another Warrior Academy podcast episode. Today, we're going to be talking about identity. Identity is a massive topic at the moment, especially for young people. And I'm not talking about pronouns. I'm talking about how you identify as a person and how you speak about yourself when you're describing yourself, and how you speak about your identity. And for me, this is such a massive topic because ultimately, something I always say to the team, and I always say to parents, and I always say to our students as well, when we speak to ourselves, we literally paint a picture of who we will become. So one more time, when we speak to ourselves, we paint a picture of who we will become. So when you tell a child they're not confident, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They'll start to do things and behave in a certain way which prevents them from becoming confident. And if you believe that is true with confidence, then it's true with everything else. It's a state of mind. It's a belief system, right? And ultimately, we inspire through language, and words are so important, and we're constantly coaching ourselves. There's always someone speaking to ourselves in our minds that's coaching us. And often when you look back, it's not even your own voice. It can be someone else's voice. It could be your parents. It could be your grandparents. It could be a teacher. It could be a strict coach. It could be a friend that's criticizing you. If you feel highly criticized and there's a voice in your mind that's criticizing you, it's typically someone else and not even your own voice that's doing that. But when it comes to identity, ultimately, as I mentioned, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And for a lot of people, I don't feel like their self-talk is particularly healthy. You find people who are going through depression labeling themselves as, I'm depressed. You have people who are going through an unhealthy phase in their life, labeling themselves as I'm obese or I'm fat. The same thing with, I'm not smart, or I'm not good at this, or I can't do that. And really, the most important thing there is we change the way in which we talk. So the way I would see it is this. Rather than saying I'm depressed and identifying as a depressed person, instead, you could rephrase that to yourself and to other people as, I've been feeling down lately. Rather than saying you're overweight, I'm fat, you could be saying, I've been overeating. I'm working on improving my health. Rather than saying you're stupid or you're not clever enough to do something, you can say, I've had a hard time understanding certain concepts, but I'm working through that. Rather than saying you're ugly, you might hear your child saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm ugly. Instead saying, I've been feeling conscious about the way I look recently. And so the same thing relates to the way in which we speak to children. And I see so many teachers and nursery assistants and even parents labeling their children as naughty. So your child might do something which is clearly the wrong behavior, right? They exhibit the wrong behavior. And what you'll then find is, the child is labeled naughty. You're a naughty boy. Or even, you're a good boy. It's not necessarily the right language to use, right? Being good or being naughty, that's an identity. And so I think the best way to approach that is, again, reframing that phrase to, that wasn't the correct behavior. And, I think the important thing there is we're not labeling a child with a certain identity. And we often find children, especially children with ADHD, who have got an enormous amount of energy, and they come to class and they may be 10 years old. We often, had a 10-year-old boy a few years back who came to class, and the parents came to me and they said, our son is naughty, he's badly behaved, and all this sort of stuff. And I looked at the boy, and it was quite clear to me within the first 10 minutes that, the child had ADHD, and, really struggled to focus on certain things, had a lot of energy, and just really struggled to kind of bring that energy into one location, into one task or one activity. Their mind was busy everywhere. And there are so many benefits to ADHD as well. We don't necessarily see that, but that's another podcast episode altogether. Just a quick shout out to the guys at Shield who manage this podcast, come up with the strategy behind the podcast, help me schedule interviews, as well as do all of the editing and the producing of the podcast. Without them, we wouldn't be able to produce this podcast. If you would like to create your own podcast, I can't recommend the Shield team enough. They have done well over 100 episodes for me over the last few years, and I've been so pleased with the results. So have a look in the description of this video or the podcast episode, and you'll see how to get in touch with them yourself. So you can imagine this boy, right, 10 years old, and for the last maybe 8 years of his life, he's been told by his parents, by his nursery assistants when he's younger, by the teachers in school, that he's naughty. And that then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. He identifies as a naughty boy. And as a result of that, he behaves in a way in which a naughty boy would. And so what I did in the first class is I immediately looked at him and said, I think you would be an incredible leader. You've got incredible energy. I think that the other students here would find your energy and your enthusiasm really inspiring. So I would like to give you the role of a leader in the class. Now, immediately, this boy was completely shocked, because you can imagine a 10-year-old boy with ADHD who's been told he's been naughty for almost a decade, with that behavior completely reinforced. How would he respond to that? Well, I find the best way to improve behavior is by giving responsibility, because it's an identity thing as well. I'm now saying your identity here in the dojo is that of a leader. How does a leader behave? Well, a leader does this. A leader is polite. A leader is careful. A leader looks out for his teammates. A leader listens carefully to instructions. A leader has great focus. And so his job, while quite minor in the group, was relative to his age and his ability. He was the line leader. So you imagine in martial arts classes, you have 4 or 5 lines, 4 students in each lines typically. And his job as the line leader was to stand on the edge and make sure the other students were standing in their places. Really, really simple job. But you imagine students run around, and then we say line back up, and his job was to bring them back into lines. And so by giving him this responsibility, his whole demeanor changed. He didn't feel like a naughty boy. He felt like a leader. And as a leader, he behaved in a certain way. And with that one child, we made such a drastic improvement to his behavior at home, in school, and throughout his life. And I spoke to the parents later about the approach I had with changing his identity. And they then took that on, and it stuck with him. And that then compounds. So just a little story there to kind of share our approach at the Warrior Academy when it comes to inspiring through language. Inspire is step 2 of the Warrior Method. So community, inspire, challenge, lead. It's such an important part of what we do when we're raising young people, when we're developing a young person's character. So I just hope that everyone's really acutely aware of the language they use with their children, but more importantly as well to themselves. How are you when you speak to yourself? Is there a level of self-compassion there? Do you label yourself as something which is negative, which doesn't show you transitioning through it? Are you painting a picture for yourself and the journey you're on as a negative picture or a transition through something negative? So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear what you think in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this deep dive episode on the Warrior Academy podcast, then subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the podcast as well. And I look forward to seeing you at the next one.